Hey guys, today I'm going to take you somewhere unexpected. You're standing on the slopes of Mount Olympus, but something's off. The stars above aren't static, they shift, subtly, like they're being drawn toward a point just above the mountain's peak. Down at your feet, beneath the gnarled roots of olive trees and scattered shards of marble, you notice strange grooves in the stone, not from chisels. These are too clean, too uniform, with a precision that feels technological. You glance up again, a flash just for a second, like a pulse of blue light right where Zeus's throne was supposed to be. Careful, thought be the end. You might never see history the same way again. So, before we descend into this strange story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if ancient secrets and cosmic questions are your thing. Drop your current location and time in the comments. You want to know where on Earth or beyond you're watching from. Now, take a breath, clear your mind, and let's unlock the myths that may never have been myths at all. You walk through the upper ruins, past collapsed pillars and time-worn statues, most depicting Zeus in that familiar stance, thunderbolt in hand. But the deeper you go, the more something tugs at your senses. You stumble into a chamber half buried in rock, its walls smoother than stone should be. They're warm to the touch, humming faintly, like the way your phone vibrates right before a call. Etched into the wall is a glyph, a perfect triangle surrounded by 13 dots. Looks familiar, right? It's the same formation seen on cave paintings in South America and crop circles in Wiltshire. Coincidence? Sure, and maybe your toaster's a god too. You're not the first to think something's off with Mount Olympus. In 1972, a geologist named Daskalos Petrova reported irregular magnetic activity in the area, strong enough to fry early recording equipment. Of course, no one believed him, partly because he wore a goat fur cloak and shouted at clouds. But here's the twist. Satellite imaging from the 2000s confirmed subterranean cavities, exactly where his crude sketches predicted them. Historians still argue whether Olympus was a purely mythological construct or inspired by a real, organized site of worship. The mainstream crowd leans toward symbolism, claiming the gods simply personified natural forces, like weather and justice. But then there's the minority weirdos at the edge of academia who suggest Olympus was never a spiritual metaphor. It was a base, a literal command post built by something not quite human. You reach a vast plateau. Stones here are cut into hexagonal shapes, fitted without mortar, like something out of a Peruvian temple. Standing in the center is what looks like an altar, but when you brush away the moss, it reveals a metallic sheen. Not metal forged by human hands, more like a kind of hybrid alloy, one that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. And there's that glyph again. Now you're asking, if this wasn't just myth, what was Zeus? Imagine a scenario. A spacecraft, massive, circular, hidden behind clouds, descends over the Aegean. From it emerges a tall being, humanoid in shape, but radiating energy. He controls weather, communicates in low-frequency pulses. The locals, Bronze Age farmers and fishermen, drop to their knees. One raises a spear. Zeus fried. The rest, instant devotion. Congratulations, Zeus has just landed. You think that's far-fetched? Okay. Remember the legend of Semele, mortal lover of Zeus, who asked to see his true form? When he revealed it, she died instantly. Heart attack, radiation exposure. Historians call it poetic metaphor. Fringe theorists call it unshielded contact. A drone whirs past your head. You blink. Wait, no drone. Just a bee. Or maybe a micro-drone shaped like a bee. Hard to tell, right? You keep walking, tracing a faint trail of melted stone, as if a craft launched here, and the heat warped the rocks. The groove continues for 30 meters before vanishing at a cliff edge. Looking down, your heart skips. There's no drop, just black, like the air itself has been carved out. You toss a pebble. It vanishes without a sound. Zeus's throne, you whisper. But now it looks more like a launch platform than a divine perch. Back to the mainstream again. Historians often point to how Greek gods mirrored human flaws. Zeus was jealous, angry, petty. Sounds more like a warlord than a spiritual guide, doesn't it? Maybe he wasn't above humanity. Maybe he was just above us, technologically speaking. A commander, one sent to manage, observe, and when necessary punish. You feel something shift under your feet. Not an earthquake, more like a pulse, a thrum, and for a split second, everything smells like ozone and rust, like the air after lightning, or after machinery has fired up after years of silence. You turn back toward the ruins, but the glyphs are glowing now, dim, pulsing. 13 dots around a triangle, the same number of Olympians. Coincidence? Maybe, but the dots aren't arranged randomly. They curve slightly like a star map. Maybe you're not just looking at a symbol. Maybe it's a navigation system. And suddenly, Olympus feels less like a ruin and more like a recharging dock. Waiting, dormant, not forgotten, just paused. You step away from the platform, but something stays with you, like your body left the space, but your mind lagged behind, still hovering over that black void. The air's colder now, though the sun still shines. You feel like you're being watched not by people, but by the memory of something that was here long before humanity had alphabets. Your path descends through broken colonnades, and beneath one, you find an engraving nearly eroded by time. It shows figures locked in combatsum with wings, others with eyes shaped like crescents. One of them holds what could be a spear or a directed energy weapon, if you're feeling bold. The detail that gets you? They're not standing on land. They're in the sky. Clouds curl around their feet, and the earth is far below, curved like the edge of a globe. This isn't just mythology. This is a record. You remember the tale of the Titan Amachisus and his siblings waging war against the Titans. Mainstream history frames it as a symbolic shift from old religion to new power. But some fringe theorists, those same ones who believe Antarctica holds buried tech from a pre-human civilization, say it's literal. They argue that what we call Titans were ancient extraterrestrial colonizers, maybe even terraformers, and the Olympians, a younger faction sent to reset the balance. You emerge into a clearing where a stone mural spans the width of a fallen wall. Lightning bolts streak downward from a humanoid figure with a radiant crown. Below, humanoid figures scatter like ants. Your guidebook calls this Zeus asserting dominion, but look closer. The bolts aren't jagged, they are straight, symmetrical like concentrated beams. And the crown? It's segmented. Maybe not a crown, maybe a helmet. You wonder aloud, was this a war between two alien species? Or maybe just a civil conflict among one advanced race? Imagine the battlefield, not swords and shields, but orbital bombardments, sonic resonance weapons, cloaked drones. What the ancients saw as thunder and fire could have been plasma bursts and sonic booms. When a mountain splits from such an impact, it doesn't whisper about trajectory or origin. It just breaks. Historians still argue about the volcanic event at Thera, modern-day Santorini. Some say it inspired the myth of Atlantis. Others tie it to the fall of Minoan civilization. But what if the eruption wasn't just a natural event? What if it was collateral damage in a war fought far above the stratosphere? You sit on the edge of a collapsed staircase, sipping water from your canteen. The wind carries a strange harmony, like metal strings being plucked softly. No birds, no insects, just that faint echo. Then you notice a carving buried beneath moss, a giant humanoid shape encircled by concentric rings, standing atop something that looks like a craft. The rings are adorned with what appear to be stars, but the outermost layer shows a second moon. Wait, a second moon? Your jaw tightens. There are myths, obscure ones, that speak of a time when Earth had two moons. One was said to be destroyed in an ancient battle. Most dismiss these as fantasy, but you can't unsee the carving now. Or forget the legends that said Zeus hurled an object from the heavens to destroy an island, too arrogant to worship him. Now imagine it was a kinetic impactor, a rod of solid tungsten dropped from orbit, flash-fried an entire civilization in under a second. If that sounds advanced, just know the US already had blueprints for similar weapons rods from God back in the early 2000s. You stand. There's something else on the edge of your vision, a shimmer in the air barely visible, like a heat mirage. You approach, and for a second, the veil drops. A Shapia being, 7 feet tall, translucent skin like liquid chrome, arms longer than they should be. No face, no sound, just the heavy sense that it sees you completely. And then Goni, did you really see it? Or is Olympus playing tricks again? You recall the myth of Prometheus, punished by Zeus for giving fire to man. But what if fire meant knowledge, tech, A leak in the chain of command? Prometheus is a rogue operative, maybe. A whistleblower. Zeus didn't chain him to a rock out of cruelty, quarantined him. Controlled the spread. And then there's Hephaestus, blacksmith to the gods, forging divine weapons. He worked with fire, metal, tools. In every myth, he's creating devices no human should understand. Sounds less like a myth, more like an engineer assigned to a mobile lab. And you remember, alien myths always seem to have one guy who knows how everything works. As you move downhill, you reach a grove where no trees grow, just a circle of blackened ground. Forever dead. Locals call it cursed. You kneel and press your palm to the soil. Still warm. You don't ask why. You just keep going. In the distance, etched across the side of a cliff, the triangle N13 glyph returns, this time massive, glowing faintly. A waypoint, a warning, or maybe a marker for the next rival. Because here's the thing no one wants to admit. Zeus didn't die. He didn't fade into the mist of forgotten gods. He left, just not alone. You're deeper into the ruins, no far below the tourist paths, past the signs that say danger, unstable ground. Here, the light doesn't quite behave. It flickers just a beat slower than it should, and shadows seem to move before you do. But you don't stop. You're close. Too many signs. Too many echoes. The final chamber yawns open like a wound in the earth. Smooth walls. No seams. This wasn't carved by hand. It was melted, molded, some kind of directed energy, maybe. The air smells like ozone again. In the center of the room stands a single, upright stone slab, perfectly rectangular, with that now familiar triangle N13 glyph glowing faint blue. You reach out, not touching, just close enough to feel the hum. And then it happens. A pulse, not sound, not quite light, more like memory, flooding into you. Images behind your eyes that don't belong to you. A dark void. Then, stars swirl past like water. A vast ship, obsidian and angular, glides silently through space. Inside, tall beings in silver blue armor speak without mouths. One of them steps forward, helmeted, commanding. A voice not yours says his name. Commander Zeus. You stumble back, heart pounding. The stone is inert now, like nothing happened. But it did. You saw it, or were shown it. And now everything shifts. The myths told us Zeus disappeared, retreated to the sky. Stories say he withdrew from earthly affairs, bored or disillusioned with humanity. But if he was a commanderan alien, one thing, maybe his mission ended. Maybe he was recalled. And maybe he left behind just enough technology to be dangerous if ever reactivated. Historians still argue about the sudden collapse of the Mycenaean civilization. Drought, war, earthquake, so plausible. But none explain the synchronized disappearance of multiple cities, often without evidence of invasion or fire. Some suggest internal collapse. Others whisper darker theories. What if it wasn't collapse, but cleansing? The strategic erasure of civilizations too close to alien knowledge. You step outside the chamber. The stars are rising now, clearer than ever. And just above the eastern horizon, one flickers oddly. It pulls through short bursts, one long. You blink. A glitch, a satellite, or a ping. You remember that stone mural again, one with the second moon. There's a legend, passed down in fragments, that Zeus will return when the moon is fullest, but not alone. You'd always thought that meant an eclipse, but what if it means something else entirely? A signal, a rendezvous, a launch window. You sit on a rock and exhale. The pieces click into place. That glyph, it isn't just decorative. It's a command sigil, a universal access point, shared across multiple planets. That triangle, a fleet insignia. The dots, member worlds. Earth is one of them, was one of them, until the recall. You think back on myth's thunderbolts, the eagle, the throne. It wasn't symbolism, it was code. Lightning equals weapon, eagle equals surveillance drone, throne equals control seat. You whisper, he was never a god, he was a soldier, and he's not the only one. There's a term you read once, in a fringe journal too wild for most libraries. The return protocol. A theory that once Earth reached a technological threshold, certain sites would reactivate. That gods would awaken not from sleep, but from orbit. The ground beneath you vibrates again. A low, rhythmic pulse. Not dangerous. Not yet. More like checking in. You glance up. The star on the horizon moves. Slow. Intentional. No twinkle. Just a glide across the sky. You're no longer wondering if Zeus was an alien commander. You're wondering how many of his kind stayed behind. Waiting. Watching. Ready. You stay seated, letting the air settle around you. The vibrations fade, but attention lingers like the last note of a song that hasn't fully stopped ringing in your ears. All around you, the ruins no longer feel ancient. They feel paused, on standby, waiting for a sequence you're not meant to complete. Your mind keeps circling that namazes. It feels alien and familiar at once. Maybe every time a priest raised a cup to Zeus, they weren't praying, they were pinging. And maybe somewhere out there, someone or something was listening. The myths gave him thunder, jealousy, wrath. But what if that was our attempt to understand the aftermath of alien justice? Not emotion, but protocol. Correction. Containment. The Greeks called him father of gods and men, but maybe he was only assigned to Earth, a cosmic babysitter with access to orbital strike capacity. You look up once more. That stare, it's gone. Or maybe it's cloaked. Or maybe it was never a star at all. You don't know what's more unsettling, the idea that Zeus was real, or the possibility that he's not finished. Beneath your feet, 13 dots and a triangle hum faintly, waiting for whoever holds the next command. History doesn't sleep here. It's encoded in stone, in starlight, in stories you thought were bedtime myths. And now, you can't unknow it. The past didn't vanish. It launched. Maybe tonight, the stars aren't looking down. Maybe they're waiting for someone to look back.